This program contains dramatic reenactments and material that may be disturbing to some audience members. Viewer discretion is advised.
David and Leia aren't just father and daughter. They're the best of friends. But when a snowmobile trip goes horribly wrong, 11-year-old Leia
Dad!
finds herself having to do things she never imagined, just to keep them alive.
I knew that I need to find help. I need to send someone to my father, you know, he's hurt.
Miles from civilization, she'll have to brave wild animals and sub-zero temperatures to find help for her father before it's too late.
Daddy!
I felt guilty because I brought her there, and I don't even know if we're gonna make it through that night.
Please, somebody help me!
Leia!
Can you feel your feet?
It's a clear spring morning, and David Hunt is preparing for his annual cross-country snowmobile trip with his 11-year-old daughter, Leia.
Cool, eh?
It was just something that we promised that we would do every year, something together.
Oh, you look at that.
We always had fun together, you know, no matter what, there was never a dull moment.
Mum Barbara and little brother William will be staying at home. This trip is for fathers and daughters only.
Leia and her father had a special bond, I think from the moment she was born. They spent a lot of time together when Leia was younger, whether it was cycling, skidooing, all kinds of things. Her brother, I think, was very jealous about the fact that he wasn't going to go. But I think that Leia really needed to have that one-on-one time with her father.
Easy, nice and warm.
I love my daughter. She just had an interest to being around her dad, and she'd always want to come and hug me, and Daddy was like everything.
Bye now.
With David working hard through the year, Leia knows it's her one chance to get Dad all to herself.
My father is a workaholic, so when we went on these trips, I knew for sure all his attention would be directed to me, so I was very excited for those trips together.
It's Leia's big day. But with the temperature plunging to minus 22 degrees, David is wondering whether to postpone the trip.
Okay.
That morning, I was a little concerned for the weather because it was very cold outside.
It was one of those mornings where you can like barely stand being outside for 1 second, let alone going on a trip.
So I told Leia, what do you want to do?
I was just so excited to go that I had decided to go anyway.
Okay.
I really like snowmobiling, just the fact of having nothing on your mind. You're totally away from everybody, you're away from work. You can just enjoy the scenery and everything around you.
It's so cold outside, but yet you don't feel cold at all because you're having such a blast.
Leia and David are traveling on specially designated snowmobile trails. 30,000 kilometers of frozen freeways, crisscrossing the wilderness. Meticulously maintained by an army of grooming vehicles. The trails offer a thrilling alternative to taking the car between cities.
That morning, we were heading in the direction of my cottage in Mont-Laurier. It's about 700 kilometers away.
The journey will take 3 days, and they're traveling light, with just a small bag of clothes for the hotels they'll be staying at along the way. Tonight, they're aiming for the small town of Saint-Jérôme.
I was concerned because it was around 2:30 in the afternoon, and darkness does come in around 4:35 in the wintertime. Figured around 4:30 we should be at Saint-Jérôme.
David has recently purchased a state-of-the-art, two-seater Grand Tourer snowmobile, capable of 220 kilometers an hour. But David sticks to the blanket 60-kilometer-an-hour speed limit on the trails. Accidents on these tracks are all too common.
Every year there's maybe 30 or 40 deaths in snowmobile accidents. You could be coming on your trail, nice and slow, minding your own business in a way, and just looking and admiring all the scenery and everything, and you'll come into a corner, and the 3 or 4 machines will just be coming around that corner like they think it's a racetrack. If you get 2 skidoos and 1 skidoo is on your side of the trail by 6-7 inches, forget it. It won't pass. They think it's a racetrack. Like we got Michael Schumacher on the track here, you know, and Jeff Gordon. My trick is not to travel at nighttime. Leave early in the morning and be finished by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That way there, you know, you won't run into all these people that are just going out for a fast night run.
After 2 hours on the road, they stop for a hot chocolate and check their directions.
You know, I think it's only about another half hour before we get to the hotel.
And I looked at the Skidoo map, finding the closest direction to get to Saint-Jérôme. Because what is fun about snowmobiling is if you do want to go in a direction, let's say to my cottage, there's 5 or 6 different trails that you can take to get there. And one of the fun things is that each year you take a new way, so you get to see new things. So I was looking at the map and I told Leia that, look, well, it looks like this trail here is a nice windy trail and everything and all that, and that'll take us to Saint-Jérôme.
Sitting in the heated restaurant has warmed them up. But once outside, they're back in the grip of the ice-cold conditions. The temperature, which hasn't crept above minus 20 Celsius all day, is now beginning to fall.
It was very, very icy and very, very cold. The wind would blow us. It was incredibly, incredibly cold.
But right now, David isn't worried about the drop in temperature.
I had no concerns on us being very, very cold. The only thing that could go wrong is that if we broke down, but then I figured we'd be able to walk. I had bought brand new suits for me and Leia, so I figured you got the best of equipment, the best for warmth, you got it all, you know, so you might get cold a bit. You're not going to freeze, you know what I mean? And to get cold a bit, well, that's we don't mind, you know what I mean? It's wintertime, we live in Quebec, you know, you're supposed to get rosy cheeks, you're supposed to get a bit cold.
Leia is already dreaming about her favorite part of their trips, diving into a heated hotel swimming pool.
That was my passion. I loved being in pools. And so the idea of having a heated pool was always very exciting for me.
Leia and David arrive at Saint-Jérôme before nightfall.
Hi there. You have vacancies?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
And do you have a pool?
Unfortunately, we don't have a pool.
When we entered the hotel, we noticed that they didn't have a pool. And I looked forward to going into their heated pool so much that I convinced my father to go on for another hour until we reached the next hotel where they had a pool.
Like any doting father,
Thank you.
David can't say no to his daughter.
So I looked at the map and I said, well, we're about an hour and a half away. So I figured, okay, Leia, no problem at all, then let's continue. We got about another hour and a half to go.
David knows that snowmobiling at night brings a new set of dangers.
You're not in cities, so you have all these animals to deal with too. If something was to go wrong, you'd rather much be in the daytime than at the nighttime.
In spite of the dangers, David and Leia make good progress.
It was a new trail. We'd never been this way in the snowmobile before, and the trails were very good.
But 30 minutes later, the trail Leia and David are on starts to change. High winds have blown snow in drifts across the track, and the grooming vehicle that should have cleared it has broken down.
The visibility of the trail was very, very bad. You really had to be cautious.
David has to stay focused. Hidden dangers lie beneath the snow. If they drift off the track, they could smash into concealed rocks and branches.
I was just anxious to get out of there and away and to get onto a better trail and to get to the motel at this point. This wasn't fun.
With the light fading and the trail fast vanishing, David considers his options.
I looked at the map. I saw that if we had to turn around where we were to go to another trail, this would take us 2 hours out of our way and that we would never be able to make it to that motel before 8, 9 o'clock at night.
David faces a major dilemma. Lose time turning back for better trails, or carry on through heavy, ungroomed snow.
So I figured, well, if the trail's no good, we'll just go slow. At least it's going to save us time.
David presses on, hoping the trail will improve. But up ahead, a hidden trap awaits them. Metal guardrails, buried by the drifts, lurk just beneath the snow.
All of a sudden, my ski was stuck.
The metal skis are caught on the rails.
I was just trying to turn the skidoo, and it wouldn't turn.
It's steering them towards the edge of a ravine.
My first reaction was to turn around and take Leia and throw her off. And then I realized... Oh my God. That's when I realized that this is gonna really hurt.
When I looked down at him and I saw him in the bottom of the ravine, I guess in that moment I just kind of froze over.
David's snowmobile has crashed into a freezing cold stream, crushing his leg and pinning it beneath the water.
I was very panicky. I was very scared.
Dad! Just get up, please! What's wrong?
Using brute force and every last drop of adrenaline, David has to drag his legs free from underneath the machine. But when he tries to stand...
When he got up, I figured everything was fine, like we were going to walk out of it, until he fell.
I realized that there was something very severely wrong with my knee.
When David crash-landed in the bottom of the ravine, it wasn't just the ice that shattered. Pinned underneath 270 kilos of falling metal, David's knee took the full force of the impact and is now smashed into 15 fragments of broken bone. The slightest movement causes these jagged shards to grind against the surrounding tissue.
It felt like somebody had taken a hammer and smashing your knee right against concrete.
Leia!
Throbbing pain that I'd never experienced before in all my life.
Dad! Dad, please, just get up!
David needs to get out of the ravine and back to a hospital fast. But with a shattered knee, he can't move.
I couldn't just get up, man, and get out of there.
Dad! What's wrong?
David is now relying on his 11-year-old daughter to get him out.
Dad, I'm coming down.
But with the wind and snow suddenly picking up, it won't be easy.
My father has always been there for me.
Take care.
Now it's my turn to show that I can help him.
Leia's made it, but there's no time to rest. Their best chance of rescue is being spotted by another snowmobile. Unless they can get back up to the trail, nobody will see them.
We were so far down that if a snowmobile drove by, they wouldn't see us, so we had to get up there.
Okay, slow. No, slow.
I tried to pull him, but he's a man. I'm an 11-year-old child, so it was kind of impossible to do.
Okay, again, one more time.
I'm like paralyzed now in a way, you know what I mean? The minute you make any movement, it's a throbbing pain.
Realizing her arms aren't strong enough to pull her father up, Leia braces her body and uses her legs instead.
So I'd grab her leg and I would pull myself up about a foot at a time. Then Leia would back up, brace her hands very well in the snow on each side again, and I'd grab onto that leg that she would put down, and I would pull myself up another foot.
I tried to pull him, and every time he would slip and fall back down.
Every jolt sent shockwaves of pain through David's smashed knee.
I wanted to quit a lot of times, you know? I figured I ain't gonna make it to the top. You know, I can't get up there.
Come on, Dad.
Okay.
But Leia didn't want to give up.
I was so determined at that moment. It was like another me that kicked in.
Girl, come on. Doing great, Leia. Oh.
Leia, all 45 kilos of her, manages to help pull her badly wounded father back up to the top of the trail.
Getting out of the ravines was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. It was with the determination of Leia and the will of Leia that I got out of there.
Oh, good girl. Good girl.
Crucially, Leia's now given them a chance of being spotted by other snowmobilers. But it better happen fast, because with a severely injured leg, soaked to the skin, and beginning to freeze on one of the coldest days of the Canadian winter, David is unlikely to survive a night in the open. Exhausted after his climb, David checks out his shattered knee. Crushed by the impact of the crash, the pain is excruciating.
That's when I really realized how severe my knee was smashed and broken. I didn't know it was filling up with blood.
Internal bleeding could cost David his leg and his life. He knows they need to get help before it's too late. Then he remembers he has his mobile phone. If it works, he can alert the rescue services and get them out of here.
Whenever we go on big trips, I always take a cell phone. You get in an accident, you get stuck, that's what a cell phone is for. There's no reception, no signal. Up there, the only phone that would have worked is a satellite phone.
David and Leia are all alone. The temperature is dropping. They're 11 kilometers from the next town. And with nighttime fast approaching, it's unlikely any other snowmobiles will pass by.
Well done.
Still wet from his fall in the river, David is freezing. But right now, he's more concerned about his daughter.
Where's your glove?
That's when I could see Leia. Leia had lost one of her gloves.
Put that on. That on.
I had one left, the other one I threw off when I was in the water, and I gave that glove to Leia and I told her to put that on her hand.
In these conditions, any exposed skin is vulnerable. And by giving Leia his glove, David is risking losing his hand to frostbite. Despite the condition of the trail and the worsening weather, David tries to convince himself that someone will come and save them.
Now it's almost dark time. I'm sure there's people around here that travel back and forth to go to work on their skidoo, or after supper they'll go for a ride. So within an hour or two, a skidooer will go by and they'll pick us up.
But David's optimism is at odds with all the evidence.
I was thinking, man, it's getting colder and colder and colder. Now the sun's gone away, the night's coming in, the wind is just howling and howling.
And the cold isn't the only threat the darkness brings. These woods are home to wolves. Beasts more than capable of killing an injured adult and a small girl.
The wolves were making noise, they were howling, the wind is howling.
I'm thinking, this is not just a snowmobile accident. I'm gonna get eaten by a bunch of wolves.
Leia is cold and terrified. With his smashed knee, David can't lead her to safety. But he might be able to keep them warm and safe from predators.
Listen, Leia. Look. Okay. We're gonna make a fire.
Leia said, well, I'll get some dead branches. I figured we'll have a bit of light, people will see us, and we'll have a fire to stay warm.
You got some? I'll go back and get some more.
I would bring him branches and he would create a fire using our map.
Hoping they'll be rescued soon, David burns the one thing that could help them navigate their way out of the forest.
Come on, Leia, they're gonna need some more branches soon.
For the first time since they crashed, David and Leia feel some warmth. The fire should also keep any wolves at bay.
Starting to look better now, at least, you know, things are looking up.
But keeping the fire going proves a challenge.
The branches that she could break were like an inch and smaller.
I got some more.
So by the time she'd go and get more and come back, it was burnt.
I would be running back and forth. Every time I would come back to enjoy the fire, it would be out again.
Listen. Still good, honey.
David soon realizes that making the fire is a futile exercise.
This isn't gonna work.
I told her, no, forget about that.
You're gonna have to stay in. Keep close.
The wind is blowing so fast, too. It's hard to make a fire.
Dad.
As the last flames die away, the icy wind and sub-zero temperatures sting David and Leia. The cold is now as much a threat to their lives as any predator. And unless they can stay warm, the forest will become their grave. David thinks of one last option.
What I want you to do is to go back down to the snowmobile. Real slowly.
My father suggested that I empty one of our nap packs that we had and take a few sweaters and a few blankets and whatsoever to be able to put on our hands and our feet.
The problem is, that the snowmobile is half submerged in the creek. If Leia falls in trying to get to the bags, the icy water could send her into cold shock. And with David unable to move, he won't be able to help her. But it's a risk they have to take.
Good girl. Go nice and slow.
It was very frightening because it was very dark. I went down the slope that I had made to the snowmobile.
I made it, Daddy!
Leia?
My foot went through the ice and went about to my knee. I was not worried. My father seemed worried, and I was kind of wondering why.
Unable to reach the bag, Leia decides to head straight back to her father, leaving behind the clothes that could have kept them warm.
Good girl.
As they huddle for warmth, Leia doesn't tell her father that her boots are filled with ice water from the stream.
My feet were freezing at that point. Really, really, really cold.
Unless warmed up, her feet are at major risk of frostbite. But it's her dad she's most concerned about.
His face looked so pale and he was dripping sweat. It worried me to see my father looking like that. It worried me a lot.
Despite the freezing cold, David is boiling up. The pain of his smashed knee is raising his blood pressure and causing his body to sweat. If that moisture freezes inside his suit, he'll become a prime candidate for hypothermia. As his temperature drops, so will his heart rate, and eventually, he'll fall into unconsciousness. He needs to be taken to a hospital immediately. But stuck in the middle of nowhere, it's not looking likely.
Nobody was coming. You know, it didn't look good at all. I don't want my daughter beside me if I'm gonna freeze and die.
With 8 hours till dawn, and the temperature still dropping, David makes a decision.
You're gonna have to go and get help, okay?
When my father told me to leave to go find help, I was incredibly shocked. I didn't know what to do at that moment.
I'll be right here. Okay?
She didn't want to leave me there, you know? She wanted to stay with me.
That a girl.
I said, you have to, Leia. I said, you can't stay here with me. You stay here with me, you could pass away. I could pass away. We'd freeze here tonight.
Off you go now.
I was scared that he would be left by himself. But I knew that I wanted to rescue my father.
Be fine.
Leia sets out alone, determined to find help and save her father.
So she got up and she started walking. I literally felt helpless. And then that was the last that I saw Leia. Leia left.
As soon as I left him, the fear kicked in. I realized that I was all by myself now. I was outside in the dark, in the woods by myself. I was very, very nervous. Very scary.
Limping, after her earlier fall through the ice, Leia heads deeper into the forest.
My father told me to not get off of the path
After burning their map to light a fire, she has no way of knowing if she's going in the right direction.
I noticed a sign that said, "Beware of animals." I was very, very scared when I saw that sign. As soon as you go into an area where it's all bushed, you can't see anything. All I could hear were these wolves howling, branches breaking, and, things moving. All these things really, really were frightening me.
Back at the crash site, David can't stop thinking about Leia.
I was so worried after she left. I was thinking, all kinds of stupid things that could happen to her.
He's right to be afraid.
I could hear a bunch of wolves. At that moment, I was petrified.
Desperate to get out of the dark woods, Leia looks around for an escape route.
I saw a path that led to a lake. And on the lake, it was very open, and I could see some lights. So right away, I got hope because I figured there has to be somebody there.
But to reach the light, Leia will have to walk straight over the lake.
I knew my father would be upset if I went onto the lake because it's very dangerous. Tons of things could happen.
Leia has already fallen through ice once, and the thought of having to cross a frozen lake at night terrifies her.
What if the ice breaks? I kept going anyway, just trying not to think of it.
Leia heads towards the light. Every step she takes runs the risk of plunging her through the ice and into the frozen water below.
All I kept telling myself is, I'm almost there. There's light. There has to be someone.
But when she finally reaches the far side of the lake, there's a shock in store.
As I got closer, I noticed that the only way that I would be able to get to that light was if I climbed a steep, straight hill that was impossible to reach. At that moment, I started to yell and yell and yell and just scream out,
Help! Please, can you hear me? Please help!
If anyone is there, they cannot hear her, and she cannot climb up the steep bank to get closer.
Help! Please help me!
I was very, very depressed at that moment.
11-year-old Leia has walked through the dark forest and across a frozen lake that could have taken her life, all to save her father. But it's been in vain. At the crash site, David's core body temperature is plummeting, and he's just hours from death.
Finally, I heard a voice, so I started to yell back.
Leia! Leia!
It was my father's voice.
Leia heads in the direction his shouts are coming from.
Daddy!
It's been 3 hours since David last saw his daughter, and hearing her voice breathes new life into him.
When I heard Leia calling out my name, it was like a sigh of relief that I knew that she was still alive.
Daddy!
I'm here! Over here! okay. It's okay.
Despite all her efforts, Leia and David are back to square one.
I was happy to hear her, and I was happy to see her again. But on the other hand, I was very unhappy that she didn't make it and that she wasn't already a nice warm place and everything else, that she would have to stay here now with me in the freezing cold weather.
It's okay. We're gonna be okay.
Leia can see that her father's condition has worsened.
He didn't look well, he really didn't. He was trying to hide it. It was very much worrying me a lot.
Body sweat, caused by the pain of his knee injury, is freezing against David's skin. And with the wind chill dropping the temperature to minus 27 Celsius, his heart rate is slowly falling. Back at home, David's wife Barbara is worried. She's been expecting a call from them since lunchtime.
Come 9 o'clock that night and they still hadn't called, I had this really bad feeling in my stomach that something was not right. So I telephoned the police, and the police said there wasn't anything they could do until they'd been missing for 24 hours.
Okay, thank you.
I was just totally devastated.
At the crash site, David has given up any hope of rescue.
I didn't think there was another skidoo coming. But it was too cold of a night, for one. Very, very blowy. The trails were so bad. Who's going to want to go out in that? You wanted that wind to stop. It was just getting worse and worse. Darker and darker. Colder and colder, and I could see up in the trees, and it was blowing all the snow off of the trees and blowing it all onto us and blowing it everywhere, and it was just the noise. It was a noise that I wanted to stop.
Although badly injured himself, David is more worried about his daughter.
She was cold, and I was cuddling her up. She was shivering and shivering and wouldn't stop. I was trying to get her the warm as I could.
But one part of Leia's body, which was freezing cold, is now beginning to feel warm. Her feet.
My feet weren't cold whatsoever at that moment. They were kind of actually numbed.
It's gonna be okay.
Her feet are also swelling. Combined with the lack of sensation, it's a sure indicator that Leia is developing acute frostbite. The cold has frozen the fluid in her skin cells, creating ice crystals. These cells have ruptured, causing her feet to swell. Now, the blood supply is not reaching the damaged skin, and the nerves in her toes are slowly dying.
Every 15, 20 minutes, I'd just be patting on her side, and I'd see that she'd move. I didn't want to wake her up, but I wanted to make sure she was always alive.
David has tried to stay strong for Leia. But now, one thought goes round and round in his head. Has he just led his young daughter to her death?
I felt guilty because I brought her there. It was a living nightmare for her. There's no way that Leia deserved this. So if there was anything that I could do for this to turn around and be different, I would do that in a flash. But I can't. I was worried that if I fell asleep, that I would just not wake up. I didn't want Leia to wake up and for me not to be there. We gotta survive. We gotta survive no matter what. was very, very relieved that the sun was coming up.
Against all the odds, David and Leia have survived one of the coldest nights of the year in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth.
We did it and we survived, and I just thank God for watching over us, you know.
But when Leia goes to get up, there's a shock for both of them.
My feet.
Holy jeez. She had ice all around her boots.
Can you feel your feet?
No.
Balls of ice have formed around her feet, which now prevent her going anywhere.
Move your feet. You can't feel them?
No.
Okay.
David grabs a metal signpost out of the snow to chop away the ice.
I was holding the wood part of it, and I was chopping with the aluminum part of the sign.
As David breaks up the ice, curiously, Leia feels nothing.
My feet were so numb, I didn't feel anything whatsoever. All I could feel was him hacking at it.
The fact that Leia cannot feel her feet is a very bad sign. The nerve endings in her toes have died. She doesn't know it, but she's in the advanced stages of frostbite. Despite the damage, she can stand. Now David wants her to leave him and save herself before they freeze to death.
Gotta go back to the trail from last night, okay? It's the only way. It's gonna be okay.
Either she leaves now on foot to go to get help, or we die here.
I love you, Daddy.
I said to Leia, when you're walking, just believe in your heart, Dad is with you. So you walk and you leave and you get to the town, I'll be good.
Dragging her numbed feet through the snow, Leia heads out once more to find help.
I was in pain at that point. I was not comfortable at all.
Back at the crash site, David knows that even if Leia finds help, it might not arrive in time to save him. He has to try and walk, or die here in the forest.
After Leia left, I figured that I'm gonna go that way too. I'll try and follow her.
Come on!
Although his knee is shattered, David summons the courage to stand up.
I grabbed that post and I made it up. I just fell down and was unconscious.
An hour into her walk, Leia spots a derelict building in the snow up ahead.
As I went up the hill, I noticed a little lodge. So I walked up to it and I noticed that it was a little cabin or something, maybe for fishing or hunting. I was so disappointed because I wish I would have seen it the night before and I would have been able to drag my father towards it or something so that we could have gone in it, you know? So I was very disappointed at that moment.
As Leia pushes on, she starts to worry that she'll never find help.
I felt like I was not getting anywhere. When you're in the woods like that, often it all looks a bit the same.
Leia doesn't know it, but now every second counts in the race to find help. Her next decision, to go left or right, could seal her father's fate.
As I was walking, I reached the point where I had turned off the night before to go into the lake. I remember my father told me it's very important to always stick to your right, he told me. No matter which way the trail gives you an option, always go right.
Leia goes right, hoping that the path will take her towards the town, and the chance to save her father. David's body is shutting down. Hours later, a family on a snowmobile trip spot David's body in the snow. David has clung to life.
My daughter!
Now his only thoughts are for Leia.
My daughter!
They said that Leia had been found and that she was going to be taken to Saint Jerome Hospital. It was a sigh of relief that we succeeded. We made it. You know, we're not going to die here. It's not our time.
Honey.
Incredibly, Leia and David are rescued just a few hours apart. Leia walking into a nearby town on her badly damaged feet.
I was so happy. I was crying. I was so happy. It was like I started breathing again.
Leia and David survived their ordeal, but sustained lifelong injuries. David underwent reconstructive surgery on his shattered knee. But Leia's injuries were more severe. Partial amputations of both her feet were necessary after suffering acute frostbite.
I really do feel lucky to be alive. The doctors thought that I would have been amputated close to my knees, and I managed to be able to keep both of my heels, so I'm incredibly lucky for that. And I thank God every day for it.
For her incredible actions in saving her father's life, Leia was given the Star of Courage, one of Canada's highest awards for bravery.
Just 11 years old and being told to go for help and not hesitating for one moment. She's the bravest person I know.
I would have never got out of there without Leia. Never, ever. It was Leia that saved my life. She's my hero, you know? She's everything to me, that girl.